Just a quick update, the Patreon page is now live. The link will be down below if you want to check it out. You'll have access to all of my betting packages and much more. Thanks again for all the support, but for now, let's get into the video. Yo, what's good, guys? We're back. We're going to be doing another video here. This is actually, a sneaky card in my opinion. It's a decent card. There's some good matchups with the main event being Jairzinho Rozenstruik against Ciryl Gane. But with the first fight of the night, we do have Dustin, Jacoby taking on Maxim, Grishin. And, this is a fight with two guys that are veterans, but Maxim Grishin obviously has way more experience in MMA. Dustin Jacoby, he did good returning to MMA. He came back in 2019 and only needed 3 fights to get into pretty much shouting distance of the top 15 in the UFC. He came in here in his debut, dominated Justin Ledet, and had a good performance in the Contender Series as well. And obviously he's one of the best strikers in the division. He's one of the best kickboxers in Glory history. He has a good record in kickboxing. He was able to fight a lot of elite guys. And his style is good for MMA because he has a good frame. He's fast, he's long, he's explosive, good footwork, good movement. And he's a former 185er, so he's very fast for this division. He's able to move around and use his speed on these 205ers pretty well. He does a good job keeping fighters at the end of his jab, and he showed off those brutal leg kicks against Justin Ledet. Really good distance control, and he just does a good job of avoiding the counters, or avoiding the shots and countering. He has a real nice counter check hook. He has a counter straight right hand that he throws. He does a good job of using the jab to blind opponents. Then he'll switch stances and throw a nice switch stance straights down the middle. He'll switch stances, throw high kicks. And he's really good at hiding it behind his punches and combinations. And he's really, really good at just sliding out of the way, countering. And it makes guys gun-shy, hesitant to throw. He switches stances, throws a lot of feints, gives different looks. He has real nice kicks as well, real nice front kicks up the middle, really good high kicks, good knees. He'll throw intercepting knees so you can't close the distance very easily on him. And then once he has you timid with those knees to the body, he'll go up to the head with those knees, with flying knees, with front knees up the middle to the head. And when he can back his opponents to the cage, that's when he'll pick his shots. He'll throw big elbows. And early on in fights is definitely when he's most dangerous. He has 9 first-round knockouts. But his hands can drop, and he gets a little bit tired as fights goes on. I've seen him get hit with some big shots, but very durable. He's only been finished 1 time in MMA, which was a ground and pound fight. And he was finished in kickboxing against Alex Pereira, but Alex Pereira is a guy that's finished Israel Adesanya by knockout. He's one of the most prolific kickboxers, in the history of kickboxing, so that's definitely not something to hold your head about. He also did lose to because of a 3 knockdown rule in another fight, but overall he has a really good chin. He's very durable, and he has 9 knockouts of his own. They're all in the first round, so usually he goes out there, goes hard for that first round finish. If he can't get it, he will coast to the win at times. And his grappling, it hasn't really been tested too much. He did show good takedown defense against Ty Flores, and he punished him for the takedown attempts. Did a good job of, snapping his head down and throwing some nice elbows. Against the cage, he showed good balance, and he was even able to, attack 2-on-1. He was attacking Kimuras against the cage and switching position because of that. In the clinch, he has really nice knees, elbows, and I don't know. It's not like Maxim Grishin is a guy that's a super active grappler, so I think he is going to have success defending a lot of takedowns unless he gets tired. Because when you look at his career, he, has lost to guys like Clifford Strikes and David Branch, John Salter, King Mo, and he did get taken down by Chris Camozzi, which that's the one loss that's a little bit, you have to look at that because Chris Camozzi isn't a great grappler, but Maxim Grishin is more known for his striking. He got a knockout in his last fight against Gatsumura Zantigulov, and, that's what he usually does, He has a record of 21 and 2 draws at light heavyweight, so definitely has done very well there. He's actually, I believe, unbeaten in his last 10 fights at 205. And he's a dangerous striker. He's more of a counter fighter, and he has a lot of power. He's a good mover. He switches stances as well, and he's very fluid with striking from both stances. He uses a lot of upper body movement, feints from the outside, and he's always looking for that one-shot counter and trying to knock guys out with one punch. likes to throw a lot of low kicks. He uses oblique kicks. He has a good jab, and he throws fast power crosses, and he can throw them from both stances. He'll throw them to the body, to the head, and when they land, they really do hurt a lot of guys. He's good at throwing the left or right hook after the punch, and if he can land that combination clean, he usually drops you. He does do a good job of throwing a check left hook moving backwards, and he is sneaky explosive. I mean, he shows that he can close the distance pretty quickly. He switches stances as he blitzes and does a good job of throwing that switch stance, straight right hand, straight left hand. Nice front kicks, nice round kicks to the body. And you even throw some nice high kicks. I've seen him mix in some nice knees. And he has 16 knockouts, but one of the issues with Grishin's striking style is he's just very low volume, almost never throws in combinations. It's usually all one-shot attacks. But having said that, he did unload on a big combination against Godzimir Antigulov against the cage to get him out of there. But Antigulov just stood in front of him, covered up, and gave him a very easy target. But Maxim Grishin usually is a guy that's low volume, low output. And if you can't find that knockout, the decisions tend to be very close. That's why he did have 2 draws in his time during the PFL. And Maxim Grishin, he has a habit of leaning back to one side with his chin right in the air. And fighters have been able to catch him or get very close to catching him with high kicks. It seems like his defense in the pocket can be a little bit suspect at times. He can get hit with some big shots. But he's a good grappler. He doesn't show it off in a lot of his fights, but I think he's probably going to try to do it here. He's, has good timing on his single leg, and he does a good job ducking under fighters' punches and getting in the clinch, but isn't really an elite wrestler. He can take people down with the single. He can chain wrestle against the cage, and he is big for 205. So I think he needs to try to get his weight, try to use his physicality, and show that he's the bigger guy in this fight against Dustin Jacoby. Once Grishin gets on top, he is methodical. Sometimes he can be a little bit inactive and just not throw much ground and pound, but when he can pass guard, he will use ground and pound to open up, passing opportunities into dominant positions. He has a good arm triangle, and if he could take them out, he will land some big shots until you give the back. He did mount Antigulov in his last fight, landed some pretty big punches in that position. And all 6 of his submission wins are either arm triangles or rear naked choke. So those are his 2 go-to submissions. He's very hard to take down, especially against the cage, and showed the ability to stuff takedowns against Jordan Johnson, who's a very elite wrestler. Even if you get him down, he will attack from his guard with elbows, arm bars, triangles. But he has been held against the cage in the past, and if you look at a couple of his opponents in the PFL, Marcin Tybura, he had a lot of success with that, but obviously Tybura is a really big guy. He's a heavyweight, and I feel like that was a big reason why he was able to get some takedowns and a lot of control time. In this fight, Grishin is going to be the clearly superior grappler, so that really won't be an issue for him. In terms of this fight, I feel like Grishin either needs to completely change up his game plan where he has to be very, grappling oriented, try to push Dustin Jacoby against the cage, close that gap, jam that distance, get takedowns, or he has to just catch that one-shot counter and get a knockout. Because overall, I don't think he's the level of striker Dustin Jacoby is. I don't think he throws nearly the volume, and I think the feints and the speed of Dustin Jacoby are going to be clearly superior to the feints and the speed that Maxim Grishin has. So ultimately, I'm going to side on the Dustin Jacoby side. I do feel like he's the superior striker in this fight. He's probably going to be able to keep it on the feet because Maxim Grishin isn't necessarily a guy that goes for takedowns too often in a lot of his matchups. If he can get Dustin Jacoby to the ground, then that's going to be a big issue, and it's probably going to be the tail of the fight. But if he can't do it, it stays on the feet. Unless Grishin lands that one big shot, I just think his inactivity is going to, befall him, and I think Dustin Jacoby is going to be able to get ahead on the numbers, use that superior striking to win the fight. So my pick here is going to be Dustin Jacoby. In the second fight of the night here, we got Ronnie Lawrence taking on Vince Cachero. This should be a good fight right here. This should be a war. And Ronnie Lawrence, he picked up the upset on the Contender Series, got a UFC contract from that. 6-1. His one loss was to Steve Garcia, who's in the UFC, who fights at 145 pounds. So he was fighting a guy that was up a weight class, fighting a tough guy as well. And Ronnie Lawrence, he's a creative striker. He has good movement. He switches stances. He's a kicker. And he throws really nasty low kicks, inside, outside. He has a really nice round kick, front kicks to the body. throws his lead leg side kick, rear leg front kicks, probably the most of all of his kicks. And he has really nice spinning back kicks that he goes to a lot as well. And he could throw those kicks fluidly, both to the body and the head, the spins. He's very good with front knees, and once he gets fighters thinking low, he will start to go high with the round kicks. He'll mix in question mark kicks, and he has decent hands. His right cross has power, and he's quick, and he's good at throwing a couple punches and getting back to kicking range. There's some nice straight punches to the body, to the head, and he's good at feinting well to hide the target. He'll feint to the body, come up with uppercuts, and he likes to attack the body with big hooks, so he's always active with that. But his boxing is probably his weak point on the feet. He doesn't really have the best defensive boxing. Sometimes, his opponent, Jose Johnson, was clipping him with some nice crosses and straights or jabs, and he was also landing some big elbows as well. And Lawrence is good on the inside, though. He throws brutal knees to the body in the clinch, and his clinch is really nasty. And he's a proficient wrestler as well. He's good at, hitting that body lock. He was able to bully Jose Johnson with that. He's shown good timing on his double legs. He did struggle to control Johnson on the mat, especially early, but he had the cardio to hit multiple takedowns in the round, and his cardio was really impressive in that fight. He also said that he didn't even have a full camp. He wasn't really training much before that fight. So with this fight coming in here with more time to work, I am pretty excited to see how he's going to look. He's a guy that's very tough. He's never been finished, so he's usually going to be there for all 3 rounds. His opponent, Vince Cachero, he had a rough start to his UFC debut. He had to jump in on short notice. He was up a weight class, and Jamal Emmers kind of took it to him a little bit. He's also lost 3 of his last 4 fights, so he definitely needs a victory here. He's a counter striker who likes to pressure, uses low kicks and feints to draw out his opponent's shots, and he has a good right cross and overhand right, and he sits down and puts some power on his right hand. Doesn't really have knockout power, but it does look like he has some pop. He definitely gets guys' attention. And he likes to throw the left hook straight right hand combination. He has good head movement, and in close quarters, he's a pretty good pocket boxer. If you trade with him, he could slip and rip, make you pay, and that's what he wants you to do. But him not having knockout power really kind of limits his ceiling, because on the outside, he can be very low volume. He isn't the best athlete, so he can struggle to get inside. And fighters who can stick and move can get very, ahead of him on the numbers. He has issues falling into the clinch with his punches, and multiple fighters have been able to make him pay with knees to the body. He will look for his own punches over the top, elbows in the clinch, but doesn't do as well off the back foot. We did see Jamal Emmers uses range very well against him, and really just kept him at the end of his shots, kind of stung him a couple times, but he did have a big size advantage on Vince. Vince has 2 knockouts, and he is durable, but he did get knocked out with a really nasty knee against Casey Kenny. His grappling is not the best, but it's also not bad. He's hard to take down. He has heavy hips. He has a decent sprawl. He's shifty. He's athletic. So it is pretty hard to get a clean entry in on him, but sometimes you could struggle against chain wrestlers. You did see a fight when he fought Ludovic Sholinin. He was able to shoot in on doubles against Cachero, circle to the back, take him down. And when Cachero's put on his back, he just doesn't look very good. He doesn't have the best get-up game. He isn't dangerous with submissions or sweeps. And when he can get on top, he isn't really super dangerous either. He can finish fighters with rear naked chokes and ground and pound when they're exhausted, but not really a great finisher on top. His ground and pound looks super weak, and he does have 2 rear naked choke victories. He's never been submitted as a pro. He has good cardio. He's a tough guy. So he's a good fighter in his own right, but in this one, man, I really do favor Ronnie Lawrence. He's going to be the faster guy. He should be able to touch up Cachero with kicks as he tries to close the distance. And I think he's going to need to use the clinch Lawrence, bang knees to the body, slow the forward pressure of Cachero. I think he's the superior grappler. His boxing definitely is not as good as Cachero's, and Cachero needs to pressure hard, cut the cage, try to force exchanges, stuff the takedowns. Early on, Cachero should try to start fast because Lawrence does have a tendency to be hittable early. But I don't see him being able to take out Lawrence or implement that game plan over 3 rounds. I think Lawrence can frustrate him with kicks and movements, slow him down with his body attack, hit takedowns when he starts to overextend, get more and more frustrated. And when he has the cardio to go as well, Lawrence, and Cachero doesn't have one-shot changing power, which is what I would be worried about here. So I think Lawrence gets a pretty comfortable 30-27 or 29-28 decision, looks pretty dominant, and has a good entry into the UFC. In this next fight, we got Alonzo Menifield taking on William Knight, and this is a cool fight. These are two guys that you could put in bodybuilding contests. These are probably two of the best options in the UFC. But Alonzo Menifield, he's looking to recover, man. He's lost back-to-back fights here, and he hasn't won a fight in over a year and a half. And he was finished for the first time in his career against OSP in his last time out. But you can't really underestimate this guy. He's explosive. He's a former football player. He's very fast. He throws with bad intentions, and he's always very quick. And tries to take opponents out really right away. He has a lot of first-round finishes, but he has a nice jab, good one too. And he likes to close the distance with the leaping left hook. He's very powerful. Throws really nice left hook, overhand right combinations. Dangerous hooks on the inside, and he has some nice kicks, hard leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks. You could tell that he works, at Fortis at Saxon's Muay Thai. Good forward pressure, and he takes advantage of fighters' mistakes. He's improving with his composure as well. In his last fight, in his fight with Devin Clark, he, was able to really hurt him in the first round, and showed, some decent cardio in that fight as well. I have seen him rocked with counters, and he obviously did get finished pretty badly against OSP. So in this fight, he's gonna have to get over that, because you could tell that it seemed like he was worried about OSP's counters, and eventually got countered with that right hook, got knocked out, man. So that was a scary finish right there. But he is a sturdy guy. He's shown durability in the past, and he's improved his grappling. He's strong in the clinch, and he does do a good job of controlling fighters against the cage. He's good at digging double underhooks, getting the dominant position. He'll drop down for doubles. And when he can get you against the fence, he's shown in his fight with Devin Clark that he can get you to the ground, and he has heavy hips. He's very strong. When you shoot in on the guy like double, he's like a brick wall, and he's really good at getting his hips back, disengaging. He's hard to take down against the cage, and when fighters who are so big and muscular like Menifield, you have to shoot in on a single, try to get him to fall off balance, because their hips are just real heavy. And he did get taken down against Devin Clark with the body lock, and Devin Clark was able to take his back, dominate him. But Alonzo did show good technique to get out of the position, work back to his feet, didn't panic there. And in that fight, he showed good cardio. I mean, it was a wrestling-heavy fight, and he was there until the very end. And he has, his back against the wall here. He needs to get a win off of back-to-back losses. But he's going to be fighting a guy in William Knight who's won back-to-back fights as an underdog, and he's going to be looking to do it again here against Menifield. I'm not sure if he's an underdog. I think it's a pick'em, but in my eyes, I feel like he's a bit of an underdog just due to, the experience that Menifield has throughout his career. But Knight is a physical specimen in his own right. He has a guy that does backflips, splits his post-fight celebrations, and he's a good wrestler with power. Striking is not very good. I mean, he has his chin right in the air. He's very hittable. He doesn't really move his head very well, and his boxing isn't that good. But he has good jab straights. He'll throw some jab straight combinations, and he has some jab overhand right combinations. He's very fast, and he's good at closing distance with the straight, and he has fast hands on the inside. So he does use distance strikes to get on the inside flurry with hooks, and he is dangerous there. He'll also throw a lot of inside-outside leg kicks, round kicks, jumping kicks, but very flat-footed. Really struggles to get his range with his punches at times, and he'll just wing overhands. If he lands, he has power, but just doesn't set his shots up very well. He will throw some spinning attacks, close the distance, and then, against Herdim Alkabek, he did land a really nice flying knee when there was not that much space. So he did a good job of, exploding right there in a spot where you maybe wouldn't have expected him to be able to do it. And he's an athletic freak. I mean, he only needs one shot to change the fight, but overall, I do think Menifield is, the much cleaner, better technical striker. William Knight, he's a grappler. He is super strong. His wrestling defense is not very good, though. I mean, he can get taken down very easily, but he's just cock-strong, man. Stands up off bottom with ease. He has that Derek Lewis get-up game, and he'll just overpower guys, reverse, get on top, and he will level change and hit some takedowns and fighters pressure him. If he could stuff a takedown, he likes to try to reverse, get on top, go to work. He's good at ducking under, pushing guys to the cage, and we can get him along the fence. He does chain wrestle fairly well. And on top, he has a really brutal ground and pound, man. He finishes fights quickly when he gets on top. He's an odd fighter to watch because he's usually losing the entire fight until he ends it. And when he can get into a dominant position, he unloads with scary ground and pound. And he has no submission game to speak of, but most of his finishes are on the ground via shots on the ground, and his cardio is very good for a big muscled up guy. Fighters get tired trying to take him down, hold him against the cage, and then he punishes them when he gets on top, and he has a lot of confidence. He's finished 8 of his wins, so he's a guy that goes in there, goes hard for the finish. But when I'm looking at this fight with Alonzo Menifield, if he could show that same wrestling cardio and same type of grappling defense that he showed against Devin Clark, I see him being able to stuff the takedowns and being able to even potentially take down William Knight with the double, hold William Knight against the cage. And I'm not sure against a guy the size of Alonzo Menifield and just with the strength of Menifield that William Knight's going to be able to just use his, brute force and just his, pure brutality like that to get out of positions and stuff like that. So I feel like Menifield may be able to control the fight against the cage. I think that Menifield on the feet in space is going to be the better striker, but at that point it is going to be interesting because Menifield, we just did see his chin get checked in his last fight. William Knight hits with power, and he's explosive, so if he can close that distance, land a shot on Menifield, anything could happen. But personally, I think Menifield is the advantage on the feet. William Knight's a very hittable guy. Alonzo Menifield is not a guy you want to get hit by very much. So I'm going with Alonzo Menifield in this fight. I think he's going to get it done. But, this is a volatile fight that could go either way, and I think the line indicates that. This next matchup is a bit of a changing of the guard type of matchup with Alexis Davis, the veteran, taking on Sabina Mazo. And Sabina Mazo, I gotta say, she kind of had a lackluster performance in her last time out. She was down 2 rounds, but she did rally in that 3rd round, finished Justine Kish, and has run her winning streak in the UFC to 3 fights. So it was Mazo's first finish in the UFC at 23 years old. I'm sure that gave her a lot of confidence, and I'm sure we're going to see a better version of her on Saturday. But, she's getting kind of a setup to continue her progression. She's facing a named veteran on a 3-fight losing streak. And this is kind of a chance for her to get a marquee win and see where she's at in the UFC's eyes. And Sabina Mazo, she's a dangerous Muay Thai striker. She's, obviously tall. She has good range, especially at 125. This is going to be her first fight at 135 pounds. So in this fight, she's still going to have the reach advantage. She's still going to be a little bit taller. But we're going to have to see how she fights, against a girl that's a little bit bigger and with a little bit more weight on her. But, she's very good with the lower body attack. Her boxing is not very good. I mean, she has some decent jabs. She throws some decent crosses out there, but she floats her chin and she doesn't really move her head off center line much. So she doesn't really have the best boxing, but she definitely throws a steady diet of low kicks. She has really nasty round kicks to the body, to the head. She's good at setting up her head kicks by going to the body and the legs first. And she has multiple high kick knockouts on the regional scene. She dropped Justine Kish with a head kick. And a weapon that I think is extremely important for Mazo in this fight is her knees, man. She throws really nasty front knees up the middle. And she needs to make Davis pay for trying to close that distance with the knees. She's also very good in the Thai clinch. She showed that against J.J. Aldridge. She seems to struggle a little bit with the movement of Justine Kish in her last fight. Kish kind of is awkward, and she was moving in and out, landing some power shots. Mazo kind of only had success with the jab during the first 2 rounds, but in the 3rd round, she woke up, started to get her timing, landed several high kicks, dropped Kish, and then finished her with a choke. So she's shown throughout her career that she tends to start a little bit slow, but when she gets going, you better close the distance, try to get it to the mat, because she really gets her striking game going. And she has an excellent chin. She's very tough. She doesn't really mind taking shots early on to wear you down, get her reads, and she could definitely take it. And she's going to be a superior striker in this fight. And she's going to be facing her first true grappler in the UFC in this fight. She did have a fight where she was out-grappled by Marina Moroz. Marina Moroz is more of an all-rounder. She's not really the level of grappler Alexis Davis is, in my opinion. Sabina Mazo spent a lot of time with her back against the fence in that fight. When Marina Moroz was able to take down Mazo in the first round, she controlled her for a large part of that round. She took her down with a body lock. And Mazo's kind of a plotter. She doesn't utilize a lot of movement. It gives fighters opportunities to punch their way into the clinch. Justine Kish was also able to catch Mazo's kicks and dump her near the end of the first round. And, she was not very good off of her back. She knows what she's doing. She's just not super dangerous. I mean, she looks to lock her opponents up by trapping the arms. She latches on that body triangle. I've seen her threaten with arm bars a bit, but she never really is committed to one in the UFC, and she just kind of tries to stall out the fight, get a referee stand up. Hasn't shown the ability to get up off bottom very well. And you do have to give her some credit, because since that fight with Marina Moroz, she's been able to show off her grappling in other fights. She dominates Shayna Dobson with the grappling, but Dobson obviously is a low-level grappler. Mazo is mean on top of the ground and pound, though. She has really nice short elbows, really digs to the body with hooks, and she was able to dominate the clinch exchanges against both J.J. Aldridge and Shayna Dobson. She was able to take the back, get the rear naked choke on Justine Kitch after dropping her. And that was the first submission win of Mazo's career. But she has very good output. She's gets better as the fight goes on. Very tough, dangerous striker. For Alexis Davis, it's going to be her first time in the octagon in over a year. She didn't fight in all of 2020. And she's lost 3 fights in a row. And she's a pioneer of women's MMA. She's a strong resume. I mean, she's defeated girls like Tanya Evinger, Julie Kedzie, Amanda Nunes, Rosie Sexton, Liz Carmouche, Jessica Ice. So she's even fought for the UFC title. So she's definitely been in there with a lot of girls. She's beaten some girls. And she's 36 years old at this point, though, and definitely has seen her better days. But this is a significant step down in competition for Davis. And this fight's going to be at 135 pounds. So I feel like she's going to feel a little bit better having her run at 125 not really be the best. Alexis Davis is a striker. She's decent. She brings the action. She's always coming forward. She has good low kicks. She'll throw them inside, outside. She likes to counter with left hooks, overhand rights, and she has nice body kicks, but she has a lot of scar tissue, man. She cuts open easily now. She's gotten bloodied up in a lot of her fights, a little bit plotty, and her defense just isn't the best, but in this fight, she's definitely going to want to get it to the ground. She's a beast grappler, and she's a long-time black belt. She's one of the strongest girls in the UFC, and you can see by her physique that she's very strong. I mean, she has good double legs, but when she can get on that body lock, that's when she can get most of her takedowns. Really good body locks off the cage, and sometimes she can spend time just striking, not going for takedowns like she needs to win fights. And when in this fight, she needs to show better fight IQ, because when she gets fights to the match, she has excellent top control, good ground and pound. She has good mounts, good back takes, and she's 8 submissions, so she's definitely dangerous when she can get on top. She's hard to take down, and even when you do take her down, she's threatening with her guard. She has good leg lock sweeps, and against Viviane Araújo, when Araújo took her down, it was a mistake because she got swept, and Alexis Davis was able to win the second round by controlling top position. Davis' cardio is really never in question. She's usually always ready to go. And this is a fight where I really thought about taking Alexis Davis, but ultimately I'm going to go with Mazo. I feel like Mazo on the feet may be able to slow down the forward pressure of Davis with body shots. I'm not 100% sold on Davis coming in executing a grappling game plan, as she has liked to strike in recent bouts. And I think Davis, if she can keep it in the clinch or on top, she will keep Mazo there and do some good work. But Mazo on the feet is going to throw much more volume. She can control the range, use her front knees or jabs. She may be able to get ahead and just beat Davis. I could see Davis maybe sneaking one of these rounds, but Mazo's the younger fighter on a roll here, improving. So I'm going to pick her, and I see her coming in here and getting it done against Alexis Davis. We have another veteran versus prospect matchup in this one, where Cowboy Oliveira takes on Ramazan Kuramagomedov here. And, Cowboy staying on the card after the UFC was able to find him a late replacement here. He was expected to fight Randy Brown. Now he's welcoming Ramazan Kuramagomedov to his first fight in the octagon. And it's going to be the 20th time that Cowboy's going to be stepping in that UFC octagon on Saturday. So, it's probably going to be sentimental to him. But he's lost 4 of his last 6 fights and has some people kind of wondering a little bit how much he has left. But when you look at Ramazan Kuramagomedov, he's only getting 4 days for this fight. So you have to wonder about that. And he is 8-0 in his career, so he's not really super experienced yet. But he has tested himself against good competition, and he's fought at ACB, PFL, Contender Series, Cage Fury. And, he's been able to fight and defeat a couple guys that have fought in the UFC. And he's a Russian, but he trains... he's trained at Mark Henry's gym. He's trained at Extreme Couture. And with the fight being in Vegas, I bet you it's a big reason why he got the call. I'm not sure if he was training at Extremes currently or if he's in Russia, but, I'm assuming that those guys are going to be in his corner. And Ramazan Kuramagomedov on the feet, he's very fluid. He's slick striker. He's good movement, really nice jabs, 1-2s, and he's always looking to slip in that straight right hand counter. And, he has a nice kicking game as well. And he really likes to throw that lead leg switch kick. And he'll mix in some spinning attacks, flying knees, good distance control. He did get clipped a couple times and wobbled against Jordan Williams. But Jordan Williams is a big 185er. Obviously, Ramazan fights at 170. So I think that, he's going to be able to take the shots better of Cowboy. But Cowboy is a power hitter, and he's shown that maybe his chin is a little bit questionable. And he isn't a power guy. He only has one knockout. So he's definitely somebody that... you may be able to walk through his shots a little bit, and you did see Jordan Williams do that. But, obviously we've seen Alex Cowboy. Cowboy is kind of a wild guy. He, really tries to close that distance with straight punches, and he's long, rangy, he has real heavy calf kicks. And I feel like those calf kicks are something he needs to go to in this fight. He needs to use those calf kicks and attack the body, front kicks up the middle that he throws. Because he needs to try to get this guy tired and get him kind of, a little bit off of his game on short notice. And Oliveira is going to have probably the, explosiveness advantage along with the reach advantage. So he is going to have a chance to close that distance, land one of those brutal uppercuts, straights that he throws. And, he definitely has power, but obviously he's not as durable as he once was. And I feel like Kuramagomedov is the superior striker. And Oliveira is a guy that has struggled against guys that can move and throw counter jabs and straights, which is kind of Kuramagomedov's game plan. I will say, though, Alex Cowboy has had a lot of success against southpaws throughout his career, which is what Ramazan is. And, in the clinch, he does have those nasty elbows, knees. We saw him take down Max Griffin a few times, control him. But Ramazan, as you might have guessed, he could definitely grapple. He has good level changes, good takedowns against the cage. He'll hit clinch takedowns, and when he gets on top, he's has good ground and pound. He's more about control. He more like sit in half guard, go to work, but he's hit some submissions on some lower level guys. His cardio does check out in most of his fights, but on short notice in his UFC debut, you do have to question it a little bit. This is a tough call for me because I do still respect Cowboy Oliveira. He is, has way more fights, and he could go in here and cement himself, get another win here. But I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go with the Ramazan Kuramagomedov. I think that on the feet, he has the style to pose issues for Alex with his fluidity and his boxing. And I think that Alex Cowboy is not going to be able to out-grapple this guy or control him in the clinch. I think that Ramazan is going to be the superior grappler. So I'm going to go with Ramazan Kuramagomedov. But this is one of these picks that I don't really like, and I just want to stay away from this fight overall. In this next fight, we got two young prospects, and Alexander Hernandez taking on Thiago Moises. And to me, this is an interesting fight because both guys kind of like to grapple, but I do believe that Alexander Hernandez probably has the advantage on the feet. If you look at Thiago Moises, he is on a 2-fight winning streak, though, and he's defeated two crafty veterans in Michael Johnson and Bobby Green. Alex Hernandez, he's lost, I believe, 3 of his last 4 fights or 2 of his last 3 fights, and he's on the verge of kind of being a busted prospect, but definitely has fought the higher level competition overall, and he's done better against better guys. So Hernandez has proven himself more than Moises, in my opinion, but Moises' last 2 victories have been pretty impressive, even though a lot of people do feel like he lost the fight to Bobby Green. But Thiago Moises is only 25 years old, and definitely is getting better every time we see him out there. His striking looked better in his last fight, but I still feel like his striking really isn't super good. Moises obviously is explosive. He can close the distance and throw some nice combinations. He ends combinations with some nice knees, high kicks. But I still feel like if you pressure him, use a lot of feints, keep him guessing, go high, low, back him to the cage, doesn't really have good cage awareness. He allows himself to get backed up and is very low volume in. I mean, we've seen that in multiple fights. If you look at Alexander Hernandez, I do feel like he has the feinting ability and, that in and out movement and just the speed and power to make Moises hesitant to throw and back him up. And I think that Hernandez can control the distance by doing that. So I think that if he keeps the feints and the movement going for 3 5-minute rounds, he's going to be able to outstrike Thiago Moises rather easily. He might even be able to get him out of there if he can land some big shots. But Moises is a really tough guy. He's never been finished by strikes and doesn't take a ton of risks on the feed when he knows he's outgunned. So, like I said, he doesn't throw a ton of volume at times. But obviously, Moises is super dangerous with his jiu-jitsu. I don't think he's going to be able to get a takedown in this fight. But you have to be careful, man. If you hold him against the cage, control him there, he will try to jump on guillotines. We saw him against Michael Johnson. Pull guard, attack that, leg lock and hit the submission there. So he's a guy that, will go submission over position, try to, get the fight to the ground by any means necessary, and he's very dangerous on the ground. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, obviously, but he doesn't have the wrestling, in my opinion, to get it there, and I do think Alexander Hernandez is a high-level grappler in his own right that understands positions. He has good position awareness, good takedown defense and offense. He has good ability to defend submissions, and I feel that even if he does get in some grappling exchanges with Thiago Moises, which I don't think he should get in too many of, he probably will be able to win those exchanges as well. So I just feel like Hernandez is a superior fighter, a superior athlete in this spot. I think that he's not going to let Thiago Moises off the hook like Bobby Green did by, just letting Thiago Moises go first too much. And obviously at the end of the fight, Bobby Green went for that ill-advised takedown when he was dominating the round, allowed Moises to reverse, take his back, and I believe that's probably why he won on the judges' scorecard. So I think Hernandez, if he comes in here, fights with some better fight IQ, doesn't try to just run this guy over in the first round, fights smart, keeps his cardio for 3 rounds, keeps the pressure high, the feints, the fakes, the backing him to the cage, going high-low with the strikes, maybe, controlling against the cage later in the rounds, going for takedowns later in the rounds to steal the rounds, and just fighting smart. So I think Hernandez should get the win in this one. In this next fight here, we got Alex Caceres taking on Kevin Croom. In this next fight, we got Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres taking on Kevin Croom. And a lot of people are on Kevin Croom this week. It seems like they're feeling that Glory MMA angle. I think that a lot of people are trying to, maybe get some money back off Charles Rosa after Derek Minner looked so good. But in my opinion, when I'm looking at this fight, Kevin Croom, Alex Caceres has obviously looked good in his last few fights where he's been able to dominate these lower level guys. He got a finish in his last fight against Austin Springer. He was able to beat Chase Hooper as well. He also got that win over Steven Ocho Peterson. And he's been looking better recently. It seems like he's locked in more. Obviously, Alex Caceres, he was in the UFC when he was way younger, man. He's been in the UFC for a long time. I mean, he's now getting into kind of his prime age, 32 years old, and, seeming like he's more mature and looking a little bit better in the octagon as well. Kevin Croom's a guy that hasn't had the luxury of, growing up in the UFC and making those paychecks. He's been grinding outside the UFC. He hasn't been making much money and had a ton of fights, man. I mean, he's fought a lot of times. He's fought a long career outside the UFC to get here. So I'm sure that, now that he's made it, he wants to try to make the most of it. And in his last fight, I mean, he went out there 30 seconds. He went out there and knocked out or dropped Roosevelt Roberts and got him in a guillotine. So really dominated him. And, he's going to look to replicate that in this fight. Definitely seems like he has a lot of confidence. He called out Caceres. I think they were actually matched up to fight previously. So maybe he just, already had a training camp for the guy. Wanted to get it done. I don't think it's like he dislikes him or anything. But, Caceres is obviously going to be the better striker in this southpaw versus orthodox kind of matchup. I think that could give some, problems to Kevin Croom as well. But I just think overall the problems that Kevin Croom is going to have is just the speed and the fluidity, the movement of Alex Caceres. Kevin Croom, he's a okay striker. I mean, that combination that he landed against Roosevelt Roberts was really nasty to drop him and then get that guillotine finish. And it does look like he has power in that overhand that he throws. But looping punches, kind of tries to just use a lot of volume, overwhelm you, forward pressure with this Muay Thai, get in a clinch, throw elbows, throw knees. And he's durable, but he has been finished by strikes multiple times. He's been rocked. His defense isn't really that good. And I do feel like Alex Caceres is going to be way faster, way sharper, and going to be able to touch him up as he tries to close that distance. And Croom's going to have to make it a grappling fight, which is what he tries to do in all his bouts. And he tries to use, his striking to punch his way into that body lock, and he's good at circling to the back, taking the back, and once he gets there, he really goes hard for that rear naked choke. I think 9 of his 10 submissions are rear naked, so that's definitely his go-to submission. He has that one guillotine in his last fight where, he obviously hurt the guy really bad and then just caught that front choke. But against Alex Caceres, Caceres has been facing grapplers in recent fights and has shown, a lot of improvement in his defensive grappling. He was able to defend, the back takes of Chase Hooper. He defended the takedowns of Steven Peterson pretty well and was able to get out of some bad positions in that fight. And when you look at his career, he's only been submitted by real high-level grapplers, so I don't know if you necessarily put Kevin Croom on the level of certain guys that have submitted Alex Caceres. And, it seems like when you give Alex Caceres a certain level of fighter, he can just dominate the fight. Kevin Croom is also a guy that I think is going to be at a size disadvantage. I've heard him say that he can go down to 145 pounds, 135 pounds. So, I do feel like Caceres is going to be the bigger guy in there. And I just think that Caceres on the feet is going to have a big advantage with the movement and the fluidity. I don't think that Kevin Croom is going to be able to close that distance, get inside so easily. And I've seen several times where Kevin Croom has been able to get in on body locks and just doesn't seem like he's extremely physical guy. And you've seen Caceres against these other kind of okay strikers that punch their way into body locks, like Cole Miller, for example. Alex Caceres was able to easily out-grapple him and dominate him, and I could see the same thing kind of happening here against Kevin Croom. So I'm actually going to go with Alex Caceres. I think he's going to, win another fight here and, move his win streak to 4 fights in a row, I believe. So I just feel like Alex Caceres, he's in a good groove. I think that on the feet he's going to be superior, and I don't think Kevin Croom is just so dangerous with his grappling that he's going to be able to get one back, taking the fight will be over. Even if he does take the back, I think Caceres could work his way out or survive until the round's over. So I'm going to go with Alex Caceres to win this fight. With this next fight, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. It's a rematch, and it's a fight that I believe they got done on 1 week notice with Angela Hill coming in here, taking on Ashley Yoder. And if you know anything about Angela Hill in recent years, this kind of her MO, coming in here on short notice, getting these short notice victories. And I just feel like she won this fight 4 years ago against Ashley Yoder fairly easily. She was able to defend all the takedowns and outstrike her. And now in this fight, 4 years later, I only feel like Angela Hill has gotten better at their takedown defense. We've seen her in her last 2 fights against high-level, grapplers that I believe are better grapplers than Ashley Yoder. She was able to defend the takedowns, keep it on the feet, and I think on the feet she's going to have a big speed advantage, big technique advantage, and just be able to dominate Ashley Yoder on the feet. Ashley Yoder is coming off that good win where she defeated Miranda Granger, but that was a grappling fight, and she was the superior striker in that fight. It was kind of a grappler versus grappler matchup. In this fight, Angela Hill has already shown, and it's pretty obvious that she's clearly the superior grappler, or the superior striker, and I feel like her grappling has only got better. I even think Angela Hill could potentially, surprise people with some grappling, which she's done in the past, like against Hannah Cyphers, for instance, and Loma Lukbunmi. But, obviously the easiest path to victory for Angela Hill is keeping it on the feet and piecing up Ashley Yoder. And if she wants to get some of these bigger matchups that she's been asking for, she was about to fight Tisha Torres. She obviously has had these close fights with these elite girls where she's been coming up just short. She needs to finish a girl like Ashley Yoder, put on a very dominant performance. So I think that Angela Hill knows that she's coming in here with a good matchup. Unless Ashley Yoder can get the back when they're really dry, lock in that rear naked choke, or, I don't know, Angela Hill comes in here off and, maybe she hasn't been training and she just doesn't look good, and Ashley Yoder's able to out-grapple her to a decision win. I don't see a lot of ways Yoder can get the win in this one, so I'm going with Angela Hill to get the victory. This fight, we've been trying to get this fight done for a while now. They've been rescheduling it a couple of times. And, man, it seems like Pedro Munhoz can't get any luck, man, with that recently. He's had multiple of his fights rescheduled, over and over. But this is a fight I'm sure he wants back. It's a rematch against Jimmie Rivera, who, he went in there and got the job done in his last fight, got a much-needed win. So Pedro Munhoz this time is a guy that needs to do that. He's lost his last 2 fights. He dropped that decision to Aljamain Sterling, went in there and had a real close competitive fight with Frankie Edgar that most people believe that he won, but, the judges that night had, Frankie Edgar picking up the win. So Pedro Munhoz is on a 2-fight losing streak, and Jimmie Rivera, he had previously lost 2 in a row to Aljamain Sterling and Pedro, but he did bounce back at that win over Cody Stamann, and he is the guy that got the win in the first meeting between these two guys in 2015. And the game plan is pretty easy for both guys. I mean, Pedro Munhoz, he's a pressure fighter. He obviously is called the Young Punisher for a reason. The guy that goes in there and tries to take you out, man. He has really nasty leg kicks, and I think that's something that's a little bit different in the first fight. They both have similar styles. They fight basically the exact same way, but I do think that Pedro Munhoz throws more low kicks than he had in the past. And I think that he's going to try to attack the leg kicks more early to try to limit that movement that Jimmie has. He also has that really nice front kick up the middle, but Rivera in the first fight was doing an excellent job of countering with combinations off that kick and really kind of muted it for Pedro Munhoz. And Munhoz, obviously, he's not the fastest guy. He doesn't have the best boxing, but he has big power and he can brawl. And if you brawl with this dude, then he can take you out. And he also has gotten a little bit sharper. He has a nice straight right hand and definitely has power with it. We saw him clip Jimmie Rivera with that straight right, get him on wobbly legs, drop him in the first fight that they had. And also you saw Jimmie Rivera get a little bit too over-anxious, over-eager when he hurt Pedro Munhoz, started brawling with him. And, man, you don't want to do that with Pedro. Just look what happened to guys like Cody Garbrandt. And when he started brawling with Pedro dropped Jimmie Rivera. I mean, Pedro's just one of these guys, man. He has a granite freaking chin. And, he could take it and give it back. And he has power in his hands. So you don't want to brawl with a guy like that because even if he doesn't knock you out, he has that guillotine, man. So if he can clip you or get you a little bit disoriented to jump on that guillotine, the fight could be over too. But Jimmie Rivera, I mean, if you look at him on the feet, his boxing and his combinations, his hand speed is vastly superior to Pedro Munhoz. He's the much better guy with the footwork as well. I do think Pedro has gotten better at cutting the cage off, not chasing as much than he was 6 years ago. But ultimately, he's still similar in his plotting footwork. He, isn't the fastest guy. And Jimmie Rivera just... after that first fight, after seeing more of Pedro's career, I believe that was Pedro's UFC debut or maybe his second fight in the organization, he knows that Pedro's one of these guys with the granite chin and you can't brawl with this guy. So Jimmie, man, he just has to throw combinations, go first, attack the body, hit Pedro when he tries to close that distance and move. So just touch him up, move. I don't think Pedro's going to be able to hit takedowns on Jimmie Rivera. He's one of these guys that's extremely, extremely hard to take down. And if he can't get Jimmie to brawl with him, Jimmie's going to be the superior guy, be able to land combos and move. But Jimmie has taken a more damage since that fight with Pedro Munhoz the first time. And if Pedro could goad him into that brawl, or he can, slow him down with some body attacks or with the leg attacks, and, force him to brawl, that's going to be his path to victory because he is the more durable guy. Jimmie Rivera, he's only been finished one time, and it was with the high kick. So he is still very durable, but we've seen him dropped, hurt before. We saw him dropped and hurt in the fight with Pedro Munhoz. So Pedro's proven that he can hurt Jimmie Rivera, and he's going to have to hurt Jimmie Rivera and take him out to get the win here. But I just feel like Jimmie Rivera is going to be able to replicate the first game plan and maybe even do a better job. I feel like now he knows what Pedro Munhoz's advantages are, which are his chin. So I think if he hurts him, he's not going to go crazy going for the finish. He's going to, temper himself and be more composed. And I do believe that in terms of, just the striking and speed and the movement, it's still the same that it was 6 years ago. I think that Rivera is just vastly superior. So ultimately, I think Rivera is going to be able to go in there and get the job done once again. This is another solid matchup here with Montana De La Rosa taking on Mayra Bueno Silva. And when you look at it, it's a really interesting matchup. It's two grapplers, but they both have gotten a lot better with their striking. Mayra Silva, to me, is the girl with more firepower and is definitely more aggressive. But I do think that Montana is the better technical striker at this point. Montana impressed me with her boxing in her last fight. She was very crisp, and she was going up against a good opponent. She was able to handle herself pretty well on the feet. But Mayra Bueno Silva, she's a girl that's super aggressive with her Muay Thai, and she has that Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So she comes forward, she comes really hard, and tries to get you to make a mistake. And if you shoot a bad takedown or you take her down and she ends up on her back because of the forward pressure, she could submit you off bottom. So that's her game. And, she comes forward. She throws really nice low kicks. She has hard round kicks to the body, front kicks to the body. She has a good 1-2. She has a power right hand. She definitely has power for this women's division, and she throws fast with her punches, but she is over anxious. She does overextend. Her defense isn't the best, and she can kind of walk into shots, and that's what Montana De La Rosa needs to do here. Montana is going to be the bigger girl here in terms of her she's going to have a small reach and height advantage, and I do feel like her hands are much cleaner than Mayra Silva. She has thrown really nasty jabs, check left hooks in her last fight, really nice 1-2s, and I think that she's going to be able to touch Silva. She tries to come in, stick and move. She can't get goaded into that brawl because Silva does try to talk to you and goad you into that brawl, and she has to be ready to counter the leg kicks because we did see that pose issues for her against Viviane Araújo. But ultimately, I do feel like if this fight stays on the feet, Montana De La Rosa is going to be the superior striker, laying the harder shots. And I do think Montana is the better wrestler as well. I feel like she's obviously a former college wrestler. She's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. She may be a black belt, I'm not sure. And, she's been a good grappler throughout her career. You hear Mayra Bueno Silva, she's very confident in her grappling as well, whereas she's saying that she's the best grappler in the division, things like that. But, I do remember, when she fought Marina Moroz was able to take her down. She was able to stay out of the submissions, pass her guard, and dominated her in the top position through big elbows, big punches, and, really beat up Mayra Bueno Silva in one of the rounds where she had her in top position. And Silva's one of these girls that she has a lot of armbar finishes. Both of her finishes in the UFC are from armbar from bottom. She has 4 armbars in the first round. 6 of her 7 wins have all came in the first round. 5 submissions, 1 TKO. And she's 1-1 in decisions overall. So both girls here have not had much success when fights go to scorecards. I think Montana only has 2 of her wins in via decision out of 6 fights. So she's 2-4 in decisions herself. But I do think that De La Rosa, if she can hit the takedowns and, end up in half guard or just avoid the submission past the guard, she's going to have success with ground and pound and control. Mayra Silva doesn't really show good get-ups, and she showed the ability to get ground and pounded in multiple fights, in her fight with Jillian Robertson, in her fight with Moroz as well. So I do believe that if Montana can get in top position, cement top position, and get into half guard somewhere where Mayra can't threaten as much with submission, she's going to have success. And, Montana obviously just has to be ready for the attacks from guard and be ready to defend that if she does decide to go for the takedowns or the cage control. And I do believe that Montana has the better cardio. She trains at elevation, and we've seen Mayra Silva slow down a little bit. But I will say Silva showed a lot of heart in her fight with Moroz, where she did bust her up in that third round, came back and came on a little bit. But I'm actually going to go with Montana De La Rosa in this fight. I feel like she's fought the higher level opposition in the UFC. I think that on the feet she can give trouble to Silva with her long range striking or counter striking. I think that she could get Silva frustrated with her movement and make Silva to get a little bit ugly, sloppy with her striking, counter her. And I think that she can even hit takedowns, maybe late round takedowns, cage control time to seal rounds. If she just stays out of that submission, which, man, some of these women's fights have you pulling your hair out because it's like all you have to do is stay out the armbar and you're going to win the fight, and they just can't do it. But in this fight, I'm going to go with Montana De La Rosa. I'm going to say that she avoids the submission game of Mayra Silva, is able to be better on the feet, maybe even mix in some grappling of her own, and just be the superior MMA fighter and get the win. In the co-main event, we got a battle of 2 Russians here with Nikita Krylov taking on Magomed Ankalaev. And Magomed Ankalaev, man, I mean, he's looked excellent. His last fight, he had that highlight reel knockout over Iwan Kutelaba, kind of closed the door on that 2 fights that they had there. And for Nikita Krylov, he's, had a mixed bag of results since returning to the UFC. He's gone 2-2. But, his 2 losses came against Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira, the number 1 contender and the UFC champion. So he's been in there with the highest of levels. Whereas Magomed Ankalaev has been in there with guys outside the top 15. So Krylov is way more experienced in terms of the amount of fights he has and the level of opponents that he's seen inside that octagon. So that's something that Krylov needs to use here, his experience. But he's not really someone that's necessarily known for fight IQ overall. He's more of a marauder. He's someone that goes in there, kill or be killed. But it's interesting, though. Just 2 of his 34 fights have gone to decision, but they're his last 2 fights. His fight with Glover Teixeira was a split decision loss for him, and then he did defeat Johnny Walker via decision in his last fight. So recently, Nikita Krylov has been, seeing longer fights going to the scorecards. And Magomed Ankalaev, he's a guy that, he can either do either or. He can win, via finish, via knockout most of the time, or he can extend the fight, go to decision, go to the later rounds. And he definitely has the cardio to push for all 3 rounds. Both these guys have good cardio. And to me, this is kind of, in terms of this matchup, I think Krylov is definitely going to want to get it to the ground. On the feet, Krylov is a tricky guy. He, likes to stick and move with his jab and pull guys into some, straight right hands. And he has a really dangerous high kick that he'll pull you into. But I feel like he's going to be outgunned on the feet. Ankalaev, I think, is way better with the boxing, as the movement to cut Krylov off, force him in exchanges. And exchanges, you see Krylov isn't really super durable, and I don't think he has the best defense. You see against Glover Teixeira, he's getting clipped over and over with that left hook, getting wobbled. And against Ankalaev, I feel like if they exchange, if they throw, some longer combinations, I think that Ankalaev is definitely going to get the better of that. But you've seen in Krylov's last 2 fights, he's done well with the grappling. He was able to take down Glover Teixeira at some points, mount him, took his back, even almost had him in a nice rear naked choke. And, against Johnny Walker, Krylov won that fight basically all through wrestling. He was able to hit single legs against the cage, take Johnny Walker down, control him on top, and win the decisions. But you've seen in other fights with Nikita Krylov where he's been winning the grappling exchanges and he just makes mistakes, man. He'll go for ill-advised submission attempts. He's a submission over position type of guy. Even in his fight with Johnny Walker, I mean, you had to white-knuckle it a little bit, man, because he got mounted at the end of the second round, got beat up. At the start of the third round, he was on bottom, getting, kind of touched up a little bit in that one. But, he was able to pull through, use his superior grappling and get the win. But against a guy like Magomed Ankalaev, I don't think it's going to be so easy to take down Ankalaev. We have seen instances against Paul Craig where, Craig got a couple takedowns, but Ankalaev was able to quickly sweep, get into top position. And, Paul Craig, even though he's not a great fighter, he's a specialist, man. He's a guard submitting specialist, whereas Krylov, he doesn't have a lot of submissions from guards. So I don't think that threat is necessarily going to be there. And I don't think that Krylov is going to be able to hold the top position against a guy like Magomed Ankalaev. So even if Krylov wants to grapple and maybe gets a takedown, I think if Ankalaev gets on top, he could potentially finish the fight with some big ground and pound. And I just think Ankalaev is the superior fighter in this matchup. It is going to be interesting because this is his first foray into this higher level competition, but I think he's ready for it, and I think he's going to make another statement and get the win over Nikita Krylov. And ultimately in the main event here, we got the big boys again, just like last week, with Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Ciryl Gane. And this is another intriguing matchup because this is going to be like a kickboxing fight. And Ciryl Gane, in my opinion, is the superior kickboxer, even though he has way less experience. It's kind of weird to say that. Ciryl Gane, man, I mean, he's not your typical heavyweight. I mean, man, the guy could switch stances, super fluid from both stances. He's always switching stances, giving you different looks. He super hard to hit. He's a guy that gets his reads, counter strikes. He, in his last fight, showed good Muay Thai, landing that big elbow on Junior Dos Santos. And his footwork is just really excellent, and he's really good at pressuring these guys, feinting, getting his reads, and then landing his counters and taking them out. Or he can, just cruise to a decision. He's a guy that has very good fight IQ. You watch his fight against Tanner Boser. He realized he could dominate, just chip him apart from the outside, and that's what he did for all 3 rounds. You see other fights where, guys are real tough. Maybe they have a little bit more power, like, a Pessoa, like a Danto Mays, and he decides to take him down and submit him. So he has it all. And I feel like he's a great athlete, man. He's a guy that has great cardio. He can go hard for all 3 rounds. I think that, his movement and just his ability to counter is something that's not something you've seen very often at heavyweight. You see this guy mix in real nice flying knees. He has real nice spinning kicks. And he has power too, but he's someone that doesn't really get in the pocket and wants to trade, so a lot of his fights do end up going longer, but he doesn't get hit much, man. I mean, I haven't really even seen him get hit clean in any of his UFC fights. I mean, he's been in like 4 or 5 UFC fights. I've never seen him really get touched with a big shot, but if any guy's going to do it, it's going to be Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who's a really nasty counter striker. He also likes to come forward a little bit, but he will hang out on the back foot or stay at range. And he's always looking to land that left hook, man. I mean, that left hook is his kill shot. He has a real nice straight right hand. He's hurt people with the jab, so definitely has power in both hands. I mean, he's shown that he could sit guys down with that left hand. And obviously, he's a guy that kind of isn't as high volume as Ciryl Gane. He doesn't have the movement that Gane has. He's more kind of meat and potatoes, but he has that big power. And he has the ability to kind of just sit, very explosive. And when he commits, he can explode forward with big combinations, counter combos. He always is live to land that counter left hand, land a counter overhand, land a counter hook, and put you on your ass and knock you out. So he's someone that is dangerous. He showed that he could be dangerous through 5 rounds against a guy like Alistair Overeem. But he also showed his limitations in that fight where he was very hittable. He was a little bit stationary, didn't let off a lot of volume, and was getting taken down. And he was well on his way to losing that fight until the dying seconds when he got the finish. In this fight with Ciryl Gane, I mean, if he doesn't get that knockout, I don't see how he's going to win the fight. I don't think he's going to be nearly enough or throw nearly enough volume or be as good of a striker as Gane at range. I don't think he's going to close the distance and really force a pocket fight. We've seen that Jairzinho can be knocked out against a guy like Ferris Ngannou, but obviously in this fight, I think Ciryl Gane is going to play that outside game and try to be smart and maybe even look to mix in some wrestling. I think that Gane has the ability to go all 5 rounds easily. I do think that he's one of these guys that even at heavyweight, he has the cardio. And I just feel like he's going to beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I think that he's going to be able to avoid that big shot. That's what we wanted last week from Curtis Blades, but didn't happen. This week with Ciryl Gane, another pretty decent-sized favorite. And I feel like he's going to be able to avoid that big shot, dominate on the feet, get Jairzinho kind of hesitant to throw with his counters, maybe even hit a couple takedowns, and really look good in this fight. So I'm going to go with Ciryl Gane. I feel like he's just going to be a superior fighter everywhere, get the win. And as far as the most confident pick goes for this week, it's going to be Angela Hill. For the parlay of the week, it's going to be Angela Hill and Ciryl Gane. The underdog of the week is going to be Montana De La Rosa. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching. Once again, I want to try to get this video to 300 likes. We were almost there last week, but you guys didn't quite get it to 300. So let's try it again this week. Let's try to get to 300 likes on this video. Let's try to get the shares up, get the views on this video up. And, if you want to join the Patreon, that's always really, really appreciated. I really do thank everyone that's on there. So thank everyone for watching this video, and hopefully you guys got something out of it. Put down in the comments if you think I could improve anything, or what did you think about this video? What do you think about my picks, the parlays? What are you betting on? I want to hear some engagement this week on this video, so put down in the comments some stuff. And once again, like always, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you guys later.